Hi there, you're listening to Lee from the Plump DJs, and this is the Liverpool Connection Podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Daz. This is my football and music episode where I bring on somebody to talk about football and music, but not necessarily football all the time, because I bring on a lot of DJs and producers that aren't into footy, but obviously are a part of my musical landscape. My next guest had a still has a fantastic label, but it went on a bit of a hiatus. He started it in 1994. It's called Plastic Fantastic. He's a DJ producer extraordinaire. Had one of the best, I think, one of the best record stores in London. Again, back in the mid 90s. My next guest is Enzo. Welcome to the pod, mate.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I know you're not the biggest football fan in the world. I know, we've been talking back and forth. Your parents are Sicilian, and so your affinity is to
Italy.
Um, who would you say is your favorite Italian player?
Oh, my life.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
You are, aren't you? There's been a few, but I suppose the first one that I became kind of aware of was probably Paolo Rossi, and that's simply because of what happened in that World Cup against Brazil and Argentina when I was first aware of a World Cup, I think, in 1978, which was Argentina, because I remember all the confetti coming out of the from the stands onto the ground, and it must have been the time of sort of like Mario Kempes and players like that, but I was still quite young. But 1982, I was 12 years old, and I was fully into it, and obviously Italy went on to win the World Cup then, but did it the hard way, really slow start. And then it was the infamous games against Brazil and Argentina, particularly Brazil, when they had their that team that consisted of players like Zico and Falcao and Socrates, that they just smashing the ball around for fun. And I don't know how it happened, but obviously Italy, got something together, and players, Paolo Rossi got his hat trick and shone through, and we beat Brazil, and then went on to win that World Cup. And so, Paolo Rossi coming out of nowhere, because I think he'd come out of some sort of match fixing ban or something, as I remember, for a while, and they got him in the team, and he hadn't done anything for a long time, and then came out of nowhere to score those 3 goals to turn Brazil over, and got into the final. I think it was against West Germany, as I remember, and then we won, which was, just out of this world. I remember seeing that World Cup. So I'm pretty crazy for football when it comes to Italy and World Cups or Euro Cups, and I get pretty down when either they haven't made it, which has happened quite a lot recently, or they get knocked out. But it's only football. But it is quite gutting.
Well, it's different. You say it's only football, but when you're a teenager, it's more than
Oh, absolutely. And you have to wait all that time. You start working out, well, I've only got another 20 more World Cups in me, because it's obviously every 4 years, and it's quite depressing if you think of it like that. But it's the whole spectacle of it, and I just love it. And also collecting the Panini football stickers when I was younger, and I've got 2 or 3 of those filled in with all the stickers, and then used to sit there, gazing at all the players, and Yeah, it was part of the growing up, and which I loved back then. And the football was a bit different then as well, I think.
Well, you could actually tackle, you know,
Yeah, it
and
was much more physical, and there was some proper stars, football players, and yeah, I mean it's still good now. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think we miss the kind of those stars from back then.
well, they were classy.
Yes,
They really were. I mean, you had the kind of the fools like Gascoigne, you know, even though fantastic player, he was just kind of, very foolish. But like a lot of the Italians, the Argentines, just class. And Brazil, it was like the Globetrotters of football. I mean, and I remember that game as well. Like that Brazilian team was just superstars. And
they were superstars, and they all looked amazing, didn't they? With their sort of long hair and sort of yeah, exotic names. I mean, Zico. What name? Just what a name. Let alone what he looked like and how he played. I mean, it was just yeah, and the kit as well.
Mhm.
Because I mean, let's all face it, that Brazilian kit is just yeah, amazing. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, you can't get better colors really than yellow and green. It's like carnival colors. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I think the Italians that year it was just like you said, started slowly, and then
yeah.
to beat the Brazilian team was just out of this world. And I'm not big into internationals. Never have been. I'm more club football. Um, but seeing that Italian team, I remember just being around the table with my granddad. My granddad was a massive football fan, and he was like, "Watch this fella, Darren. Watch this fella and this fella," and I was amazed. And the Italian haircuts as well. I mean, Rossi had the little
With
rat
the kind
tail.
of mullets, aren't they? The
Yeah,
curly mullet at the back. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna have one of those. My granddad was like, No, you're not. No, you're not. No, not looking like that. Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. I mean, my thing of watching Italians though is before like the smoking was bad for your health, was seeing Italian footballers on the bench smoking. Was you look back, you think of it now and go, oh, that's no, you're a footballer, but you would see the Italian players having a nice smoke on the bench, and it was just to look back and show somebody that now who had no idea of what football was back then would probably be very shocked.
Absolutely. I remember actually you saying that. I remember the managers on the sidelines smoking. Now you say that,
Yeah.
watching the game, just shouting and directing, having a fag in their mouths.
Yeah, it's just quite bizarre, because I mean, obviously footballers are some of the fittest athletes on the planet. You would never think they would smoke. And then obviously after games as well, they go down the pub, you know. Can't really, lads don't do that anymore. I mean, usually you're probably going to go, if I have a drink, I'll be on holiday in June or July. But
Mm.
back in the day, it was like they were out till all hours of the night at nightclubs and everything. I think that's why a lot of us could relate, at least, because we went to nightclubs and we drank and, smoked and all that. And we were like, yeah, I can relate to him. Yeah, gets to kick the ball around at a World Cup. I don't. I'm watching it, but everybody has a drink and a smoke. Yeah, it's quite bizarre to look at that. But I want to talk quickly. Like the only player who I can think of in the Premier League era that has done an Italian that has done really well is Di Canio. Um, because Liverpool, we've had Balotelli, Aquilani. Now we have Chiesa. Hopefully, Chiesa will come good after all his injury. problems, but Balotelli and Aquilani for Liverpool were just absolute shite. They
Well,
just
Balotelli's just always up and down, isn't it? He can be brilliant and then he can just be nothing. That was the
Mhm.
problem with him in the national side. It was, just didn't have much confidence in him because, he could be great or he could just be crap.
Well, he was a head case.
Mm,
And I think most of it with some of the stuff with these players, it goes to their head, and you could see that with Balotelli, like
yeah,
when he played for Man City, even in a friendly, I think it was over here in the US when he tried to go past like 10 people and could have, passed the ball and they would have scored, and then he missed it. And it was just that's the type of player he is. He wants to be all about him. And
yeah.
when he came to Liverpool, I was like, he's just not the right fit. And then he
Mm,
proved it because I've had some of the players from Liverpool, ex-players on the podcast who told me some stories about Balotelli. Balotelli couldn't be asked in training. Was like,
no,
I need
absolutely,
to
yeah,
do this. And it's like, come on, man, you're a footballer. That's still your job. And
yeah.
it's he could have been a lot better player. I mean, the whole thing, like you've heard of Paul Pogba as well, and another one. Obviously he's French, but he's another one that it all went to his head. It
Yeah.
was not about the hairstyle and it was about the football, and it just ruined him. And
Mm.
it's just sad. The Italians, have done well in World Cups. You've done well in European Championship, but like you said, in the last couple of years, you've missed out on the big games. But you still,
Well, I'll tell you what, there is nothing worse than watching a World Cup without your team being in it. It's
Mhm.
demoralizing.
Oh, I
Waiting
bet.
waiting all that time, and then you've got to watch the others because I want England to do well. I was born in England, and I love England, but I don't know. It's just when it comes to football, my heart's not in it. It's just I've always loved the Italian team. I'm afraid so. It's not the same.
You like what you like.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. Now, I want to talk about the music. When did you come up with Well, let's go for I want to know your roots in music first. Like, what was obviously you said your parents are from Sicily. What were you listening to as a child in your house?
As a child, so funnily enough, my dad, without me actually sort of knowing it and really aware of it at the time, must have been quite. They're both not here anymore, but he must have been quite well. He was into music, but because he used to sit there on a Sunday afternoon and listen to the top whatever it was, top 100, which must have been on the radio, and he'd have his little cassette player there and he used to record the songs that he liked from the top 100. So basically, he was making mixtapes. We call mixtapes now. And I remember there used to be stuff like Boney M and all those just Euro kind of crazy tunes on there. Um, Magic Fly, Popcorn, Jean-Michel Jarre, I mean all of it. And then we used to drive to he drove us to Sicily once a year. We used to go in September, and which took 3 days driving. And we used to go in a mini, and there'd be my mum and dad in the front, me and my brother in the back, and he'd have the mixtapes on. So the whole journey, and there was no stopping over in motels. It literally was 3 days, 2 nights, constant driving. When he was tired, he'd pull over in a petrol station, have a couple of hours kip, and then carry on. But all through this, we'd have the mixtapes on, and so it's obviously instilled in me this kind of musical kind of knowledge and depth, and I have a very wide taste in music. So, but a lot of it does, I suppose, stem from the early kind of electronic music that I was listening to from his mixtapes from the late sort of 70s.
And when
Yeah, carry on.
no, sorry, go on.
Um, and 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 so as I loved War of the Worlds as well. That was the first thing I remember being aware of musically in the back of my friend's car, friend's parents' car, being driven back from a party or something, and they had War of the Worlds on. And I mean, I've never heard anything like this before in my life. It absolutely blew me away. Um, and it made a big mark on me. And it's still, whenever I hear it now, it still blows me away. It's just amazing. The Jeff Wayne kind of War of the World soundtrack. Um, but I went on to like, the early sort of U2, Depeche Mode, and then I was a huge Cure fan. So I was heavily into indie music, right up until I was about 17, 18, maybe 19, and then started getting into the kind of indie dance thing. So Andy Weatherall plays a huge plays a huge part in my musical extravaganza, because he all that early kind of Primal Scream stuff, Screamadelica, Happy Mondays, all that kind of stuff got me into indie dance. And then before I knew what I was doing, I went to my first sort of rave and, listened to people like Carl Cox and Sasha and things like that, the Eclipse. And then that's what basically I went from, indie to dance really over the space of a year or two. Um, that's what got me into dance music really. And then the rest is history, as they say. But I still love indie music, and I still love indie dance music, and still love The Cure. I was listening to their new album recently, and I still go and see bands like The Cure and Depeche Mode. I think they're just absolutely brilliant live.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are the same, Enzo. The gateway to like acid house was the indie scene. I'm the same. Grew up, you know, 87, 88. Happy Mondays came around, and then when I first heard um, Paul Oakenfold's mix,
Yeah, he
uh,
was well, basically, between Weatherall and Oakenfold, they were the ones, weren't they, that were
mhm.
championing that, remixing a lot of the indie groups.
Yeah, it just took me by surprise. I mean, indie bands already have that danceable side about them, but when you
Well,
get,
Stone Roses is one of my favorite groups of all time, and yeah, absolutely, just yeah,
yeah, it was just like the little drum patterns for me, especially Rene for Stone
yeah.
Roses, one
Oh
of the
my
best
God,
drummers on the planet.
absolutely. We used to jam along, pretending we were in the band, like in friends' rooms. Just someone would be on the drums, someone would be on the bass guitar, just all mucking around. Just yeah, I mean, his drumming was out of this world.
Yeah, I'd never seen. I mean, my dad's like a Who fan, so I'd known about their drummer that like for a young kid, I mean, I was 17, 18 at the time. I'd never seen anybody drum like that in my entire life. And just the funkiness that came out of it. That, again, without John Squire's guitar licks and Mane's bass playing, it wouldn't all connect.
No,
And then Ian Brown, like when he sounded all right back in the early 80s,
when
and
he sounded all right, he was good. But do you know what? It didn't really matter, because it
yeah,
was all like you say. It was about the drums, the bass, the guitar, pure funkiness of it. Just made you dance.
hmm yeah, and I mean, like when the remixes started coming out, I was like, that's what turned me on to dance music. I mean, you know, Andrew Weatherall, Midas touch. Everything he did was just amazing, whether it was dance music, rockabilly, pop, whatever he did, he just made it just listenable. And I think him and like Oakenfold just changed my landscape on music. Hallelujah, Happy Mondays, Jesus Christ.
I know.
It's how long is that track? I mean, 10 minutes.
You can just never get bored of it. I can hear it over and over again, and the like piano break when it comes in, it's just perfection.
And I think that it's what I miss about tracks now, is because, you know, a lot of people's attention span are 3-4 minutes, while I'm more of the like, give me more. If the track's like stellar, I want 9-10 minutes of it. I just do. And I think you lose yourself on the dance floor more with you know, the longer mix, and especially if you have DJs like yourself, like Sasha and Digweed, who can take mixes 9-10 minutes long and add to it. You know, it's just unreal. So for you, when did the DJing start?
Well, I kind of left school, went to sixth form college, did 2 years there, and was doing sort of economics business thing, and then I thought I wanted to work in a bank, so I started working in Lloyd's Bank in my local town, and lasted for about 3 years, and then my mates were a bit younger than me, and I could see them going out in the summer and not tied down, and they brought in voluntary redundancy. So I took it, and with the money, I bought some decks and a mixer. And then just started mucking around in my bedroom with my mates, like pretending to do MCing and stuff while I was DJing. Taught myself, and then just gradually started playing. We did a couple of raves in Forest Row in some car parks, and tried to do the kind of open air little kind, you know, when the raves were kicking off, with the kind of, you know, private kind of number you rang to find out where it was, and then I think I got a couple of gigs in Brighton at the Escape Club and the Zap Club. And then I moved to London basically. So I thought, I'm not going to do the whole working thing, because I could see, you know, working in a kind of bank sort of thing, because I could see people there that had been there 30, 40 years. And I was like, this isn't for me. I need something else. So I went to South Bank University, which happened to be right next to the Ministry of Sound. It must have been in 91, I think it was. And I had to do, as part of that was a business course, I had to do a business studies course on setting up a business. And at the time, I was going in Fat Cat Records in Crawley, which then moved to London, to Covent Garden, with they had a great bunch of guys, Alex Knight and a few others. And they were mainly techno they were selling, but I used to get all the kind of housey promos from them. So I had to do a business study on setting up a business, and I just did it on setting up a record shop. And basically, before I knew what happened, the university ended, and I got together with a friend and my brother, and my dad offered to lend us some money to set up a shop. Not that he had a lot, but he could see that we were dreaming sort of big, and I think deep down it's something he would have wanted to have done. So we set up the record shop in Covent Garden in '94, not knowing what we were doing, completely, you know, flying by the seat of our pants. And that, from setting up the shop, is where we then started getting gigs in London. So Ministry of Sound, we were playing sort of once a month. We did a fantastic party there, and then I was like warming up in the main room for DJs like Paul Oakenfold and people, and I was like, you know, completely out of my depth. And there were clubs like WAG Club and the Gas Club and Limelights. I was playing, I think, once a week at one point for a couple of years. And the Milk Bar, and just generally just started, the bigger the shop got, the more gigs there were. And then they started turning into international gigs, because we had a lot at that time. Obviously, the only way of getting decent music was, well, it was all on vinyl. So and London was kind of the mecca for it. So people used to fly in to DJ and then come to the record shop and buy records. So we were meeting the DJs and promoters, and do you want to come and play in, Hungary, Romania, blah blah blah. And yeah, before we knew what we were doing, we were just jet setting around the world doing plastic parties. And it all stemmed from there, really. And yeah, it lasted till 2006.
Was it bittersweet though? I mean, that's your baby, right? For 12 years.
Yes,
Was it bittersweet when you had to close it down?
absolutely, yeah, because I'd never had a business before. So, deciding that it's time to stop was very, very hard. And in hindsight, you look back on it and you think, well, you should have done it maybe a bit before. We were holding on. It was basically the demise of vinyl at the time. There was the whole Napster thing kicking off, and people didn't want to pay for music at that time. There was no streaming really, so we were in this middle ground, no man's land, where no one wanted to buy vinyl, but no one wanted to pay for downloads. And so, and also Covent Garden changed, and a lot of the multinational companies came in, and it pushed up rents, and our rent sort of doubled at the time, I remember. And they brought in the congestion charge, which stopped people just being able to drive in, pop in and buy some records, and it just became a real struggle. So it was time to close down. And I mean, a lot of other shops were closing before and then went on to close after us. It was just a very hard time for record shops. But it was bittersweet, because it wasn't just the business, it was the whole life. And we had a great family within the shop. There was 6 or 7, 8 of us. And everywhere we went in London, we could get into any clubs free. We were on the guest list. We had it all really for those years. So it was very sad when it was closed, and it was a bit of a culture shock, going from that to, and then I moved away from London to Hove, and I had 3 kids, and kind of went more underground, and did a different business, started a new business selling vintage furniture. But I've always kept an eye on music and had decks, and whenever we got together for a little party between friends, we'd have a deck bash, as you do. So it's always been bubbling away in the background. I've never kind of completely turned my back on it. But the past few years, it's kind of obviously bubbled back up. And the whole, vinyl, not that I've got a record shop now, but vinyl obviously now is a big thing again. Obviously slightly different, because buying records now, you have to pay, here in England, it's like 15 quid. I think they sell, 15 quid and upwards. And it's all done in a much smaller scale and more sort of limited runs. And but yeah, and the whole streaming thing's been sort of regulated, and so there's, although obviously there are issues with it now, people not getting paid enough, and won't get started on that whole side of things, but at least it's a bit more regulated, isn't it? There's not so much sort of piracy, which is what was happening back then in the kind of early 2000s.
I think the sad part is, I mean, for me, for Liverpool, 3-beat was
Oh
massive.
yeah, I love, for us and Freebeat, we're always kind of at each other's, how do you call it? We're great at the time there were three shops competing. There was us, Freebeat, and Massive Records. I think that were the kind of, for progressive house and house, we were the kind of big guns. But so there was always this rivalry, but I always got on really well with Pez and Steve Parry and Andy Jarrett, who went on to work there. So there was it was always a good kind of competitiveness, and there was, the world's big enough for all of us. So
Of
yeah,
course.
but yeah, I love the Freebeat guys.
It was just sad. I mean, kind of Plastic Fantastic and Three Beat, like you said, competing, but yet still, good mates. But I think with the loss of those two shops, I know whenever I was in London, I'd come to Plastic Fantastic, and obviously being in Liverpool every Monday, I'm down the shop as soon as it opens because I want the stuff I heard, over the weekend, and it becomes part of your life. It's a social thing, you got to know all the people in the shop, and when you walk in there, there's a stack of records waiting, and that's one of the biggest things that I missed, and because it's a part of your life, and I'm sure it was for you as well, seeing all the people like every Monday or during the week, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So you
Well,
don't.
a lot of people miss it, don't they? They love you. This, yeah, it's just so difficult. I mean, I'm getting back into getting promos now, and the whole, getting sent lots of music. And I mean, I only get sent a little bit compared to some of the, big boys. And I just don't know how you, siphon through it all and find the trade. It just takes so much time. There's so much out there. Whereas I mean, other people will say the same thing, but when you had vinyl, it was just a bit more regulated, and you'd have to spend money to get the track mastered and pressed onto vinyl, um, which took money and effort. And now, and I mean, it's a good thing because you can make, I can make a track now on my laptop pretty much, and then get it mastered and just put it up, and it's up there. So I mean, that's a good thing, but also I think it's a bad thing because there's too much basically. Whereas, like you say, you used to go into Freebeat, they'd have a pile of records for you. They've already done your job for you. They know what you like. I mean, we used to do this with a lot of the big DJs and regular customers. Make a bag up for Sasha, make up a bag for, John Digweed, make up a bag for Pete Tong. They're sending a bike round to get it, and you're giving them your selection of what you think they're going to like, so they don't have to go through the 200 that have come in that week.
And plus it was more personable as well.
Yes.
Like we sit on our own little homes, go to Beatport, Bandcamp, Juno, and spend an hour or two going through probably 90% shite, which it is. But when you get to your record shop, the one that we'd go to, 90% of those records you're going to buy. You just knew it, make 10%, you'd be like, I'm not so sure on that. But even if you didn't like the A side, the B side, would be probably better than the A side. So I just miss that like human connection, and being told, all right, Darren, you've been in here for fucking 5 hours. It's time for you to fucking buy something or fuck off, jokingly, but I just miss those days. I kind of hark back on them. It's just, it's too easy just to press download, pay, download. But having brand new vinyl, I've always said it, the smell of vinyl, there's something that I like, taking the plastic off. you know, and especially if it's like maybe a double gatefold, reading every single word that is on that piece of, you know, paper. You'd flip it and go, all right, you know, who did this, who did that, who
And for
did the
some reason, it kind of it materializes in your brain, so that this is the problem I have, is the box of records. I could go through when I'm DJing and know what the tracks were just by the look of the label and the look of the sleeve, or if it's a white label, the writing or whatever, and you pick through it and you know what it is. Whereas when you're looking down the list of names of the tracks in record box or whatever, it just it yeah it can't, it doesn't go into my head. It's a real struggle, and the words don't mean anything, whereas I need to have that visual element of the vinyl, like you're saying, the smell of it, the look of it, tattiness of it. You know, that record's I've been playing for 20 years.
I guess the good thing about bringing a USB stick, though, I would say one of the only good things is you don't have to carry that record
No,
box.
I was saying to someone else actually, yeah, the bruises on your shoulder, because I used to always take too much. So if I was DJing abroad, I'd have two bags, you know, and you'd get to the hotel or wherever you are staying for the night, and you'd see the bruises there, or you try and smuggle them past the you know, airport checkout person, so that you're trying to convince them it's hand luggage, because you'd never want to hand your records in to go into the hold, because, you know, there were all sorts of scare stories about DJs turning up to DJ and their records are in another country. I mean, yeah, horrific.
Or in somebody's house already, because
Yeah.
that's the thing. Back in like early 2000s, everybody was into house music, and the people that worked at airports were into house music.
Postmen were into house music.
They knew what a record bag looked like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you'd be like, you know, I remember a horror story. I think Oakenfolds went somewhere and he had two crates, two boxes, didn't get either one of them, and pretty sure, you know, I'm sure someone at Heathrow was like, I'm having that, you know.
Well, I've got a horror story where I DJ'd at Limelights, one of the nights I DJ'd at Limelights, and I remember and we were quite drunk, and I remember getting back to well, I remember I was driving. I must have been the one driving, because I remember my Ford Sierra parked in Covent Garden, and my mates were quite drunk, and I got back to the car. They were carrying my record box. Put the record boxes in the. I opened the boot. They put the record boxes in. We drove. I think I lived in the Docklands. Got home, and then went to get the rep boxes, and realised that there was only one box, and there should have been two. And so I quickly drove back to Covent Garden, where I'd parked, but obviously the record box had gone. He'd put it on the floor next to the car, drunk, and not put it in the car. And that was a whole box of records. And the worst thing is, I don't know what was in there, because I didn't have a list of everything I took out. You used to just pick records out of your wall there, put them in. Oh, I'm going to go and DJ with that. So still, it's funny, because a few months later, someone came in the shop to sell some records, and there were two records in there with my handwriting on there. So I managed to buy back two of the records that had gone missing. I mean, you know, it's not anyone's fault, but, you know, I remember it took 2 or 3 years to get over that one, and I still don't know what was in there to this day. Sometimes I go into my collection to pick out a record and can't find it, and it's like, oh, must have been in that box.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, there could have been some like hard white labels.
Well, valuable, because some of the records now are going for like 150 quid. Some of these sort of rare progressive house and trancey kind of records.
Oh man, that's horrible.
Anyway.
I was actually half expecting for you to say one of your mates had left the door open, and while you were driving, your record boxes flew out.
No, just left it on the side of the road there. I flipped it flipped the boot open, but he just put them on the side, got in the car, shut the boot, and off we went with the record still sat there. Someone must have just walked past and gone, "Ah, lovely."
Yeah, thanks. Merry
Yeah,
Christmas.
thank you.
So when did the idea of starting the label come about?
What originally?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a progression because we had the shop open and we were kind of, we thought having a record label as, we wanted to release music as well. And we just started, and I remember going in the studio to make my first kind of track with Simon Lovechild, who was back then doing Mombasa Cry Freedom, and he'd done a track called DEA. And we kind of became friends, and I went in the studio with him to make it was actually, I remember, Gap Decor studio where they did Gap Decor Passion. And so I made a track, and my partner Jan at the time had made a track in the studio, our first kind of foray into making dance music. I don't think they were particularly that good, but it was the beginning. And then as soon as that was released, we just started getting demos and just getting some really good demos. And then bit by bit, it just spiraled into getting some really great music, and then using some remixes at the time that we really liked, and it just grew and grew. And then and then at one point we were getting so many demos, we thought, right, we need to digress here. So we started Plastica for sort of slightly darker sound. We kept Plastic Fantastic for the kind of more sort of proggy sound, and then after that, Plastica Red, which was just another avenue for slightly houseier Plastica stuff. And then I think we did Fantastic House towards the end, which was more for housey stuff, where we had Audio Fly actually as one of our first releases, and it was one of their first sort of track, and obviously they went on to become there's quite a few people we kind of we released at the time that went on, thankfully, to bigger things, which is quite nice to see.
Well, I mean, I would always remember the heart and the wings.
Yeah.
The logo, like again, whenever I would see that, I'm like, that's quality. Like it really is. And we've messaged back and forth, and I've told you, the Dave Kane Clarkness track. You can play the original today and it will blow dance floors away. Just the swirling synth, throughout, just gets, louder and louder, and it's.
Yeah, this was the other advantage of having the record shop, was we were getting loads of like upfront imports. So I think that import came from Holland or Belgium. I think it was Belgium. So literally fresh into the country, and there'd be limited amounts, maybe 20, 30 came in, and we'd try and buy them all up before Freebie got them. And then we licensed that. So as well as getting demos, there were tracks we'd hear. We're like, this will sound great, released on our label, and we'll get a remix of it done as well. So at that time, Shem, rest in peace, was coming. Good friend coming in the shop, and all the Slacker thing was huge at that time. And we got him to do a remix, and I think Lee Burridge did a mix as well. He'd just come over from Hong Kong and landed in the UK, and was sort of working in the shop, and a friend of ours, and got him to do a mix as well. So
How on earth did I miss the Lee Burridge one then?
it's on there. It's on the release actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and
You
look.
have to have a look. Yeah, have a look at your release there.
Because usually it'd be the original I would play, or Shem's.
Yes.
So
the thing was, Lee wasn't. We're talking. He wasn't. This was the very early days, like before Tyrant or any of that. He was a. Lee was such a brilliant DJ, and basically, I was like, how do you DJ like that? His mixing is just impeccable. And it's basically he was playing in I think it was Hong Kong, and he was playing every night, and there were no monitors, so it was like some shitty sort of club bar, and he'd just be playing and mixing every night with no monitors. So he taught himself literally how to mix with just just with some shitty speakers in the background. And yeah, and then he landed in the UK, and started he knew, because people used to go and DJ in Hong Kong, I think, Sasha and people, and then that's how the whole Tyrant thing started with them. So there's Craig Richards, Lee Burridge, and Sasha, and yeah, they did the whole Tyrant sound system thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I'm pretty sure my memory isn't the greatest. I'm sure I probably played that remix, but I'm gonna have to go back and
Yeah, have a look
again. Yeah, but it just stands the test of time, that Clarkness. It really does. But you know, having a record label and then kind of going quiet on it, and then having a long hiatus. Why bring it back?
because I've always kind of had the thing in the back of my head that I'd like to kind of do something with it one day. I was trying to get the kind of name back from, because when we closed the shop, it went into liquidation, and some other company bought the name and then were using it a bit. You released a couple of tracks. I don't think it weren't really doing it properly, doing it well, in my opinion. There were a few releases, nothing like what we were doing. And then I just contacted the guy that owned it and was trying to get the name back the past few years. And I just kept hassling him, and in the end sorted out a deal with him. And I just wanted to get it out of my system, really, do it again. But at the time, I was doing 2-3 years ago, I was quite into. I was doing the whole Balearic jukebox thing, which is another project I do for sort of Balearic-y, because I've always loved Balearic music ever since went to Ibiza in the very early 90s, and I actually managed to DJ at the Cafe Del Mar when I first went there on my first year, because I took some records over, and so I've been doing that and just getting back into music. And then I was doing some mixes for Balearic Jukebox, just some sort of DJ mixes that we're putting together. And then I started using Ableton to help with the mixes. And then before I knew what I was doing, I was kind of re-editing tracks and putting stuff over it. And Ableton's so easy and so clever. And again, before I knew what I was doing, I was kind of making my own sort of tracks. And I started making tracks, and then it kind of went hand in hand with the whole. And I made a track and played it to a few people, and they're like, why don't you re-release, relaunch Plastic Fantastic? Because progressive house has become, I mean, back in the early 2000s, progressive house became a bit of a swear word, really. No one wanted to know. I think they took it down from a lot of the, like, what was it, DJ Mag top 10 reviews, or the one, Mix Mags, the ones they were doing every time the magazine came out, because progressive house was not very well held in great regard, because it was the whole tech house thing came through. This is at a time when, towards the end of the shop, I remember, I think Phonica had started, and there was a real backlash against progressive house, and everyone wanted more tech house. But no, the past few years, progressive house has been getting stronger and stronger. and lots of young people are getting into it again now. And so it just seemed like the right time really to just give it another go. And I had people saying, people offering me tracks. And really I wanted to do it to help my son out because he's trying to get into dance music. But what's happened is I've kind of set up the label and he's kind of gone off and got a different job and hasn't really got time. So I'm doing it all now, which I don't mind because I'm getting to reconnect with all these people I haven't spoken to in 20 years. And funnily enough, there's quite a few of us that have all had a break and are coming back into the scene and are making music again, or starting up their label again, or DJing again. So and it's real, it's real good fun and a nice kind of sort of side hobby to have. I wouldn't like to depend on it for a living, so I don't know about all these, a lot of these up and coming producers and artists that are depending on it, because obviously there's not really any big money to be made in it anymore because of such streaming, Spotify and blah 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 not paying enough money. But it just seemed like the right time really, and I'm glad I did it because already we've just got some, a good selection of music to put out for the next few months, and more coming in all the time.
Well, your Cortona, project, from what I've listened to a couple of tracks, and obviously you're on the new Futuro remixes on Bedrock. That just seems like it's going to get better and better.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I was absolutely blown away because I've never got into making my own music. I've always stood in the background. I mean, I haven't done loads anyway, but when I was in the studio, it was always in the background as the kind of DJ, not getting involved with any of the kind of actual engineering side of it, letting other people do it, and which was fine at the time. But yeah, about a year ago, I kind of just sat down and started looking at YouTube videos and taught myself how to use Ableton in order to kind of make an all right sort of track. And I put my heart and soul into making this sort of progressive track using kind of a lot of the influences from the early progressive sound, but trying to make it sort of more current. And I made this Foresta track, and I didn't really think much of it. I listened to it and I thought, yeah, this is all right. But I sent it to John Digweed, and I hadn't spoken to him for like 20 years. I just got his email, sent it to him. Didn't get a reply, but I was on my social media just having a little thumb through, sitting on the bottom of the steps, changing my shoes or something after a dog walk. And I'm thumbing through one Saturday morning, and I came across John Digweed's post, and he was just been playing at Stereo in Montreal, which is one of the best, clubs in the world. And it was 11:30 in the morning. He put and the track playing. I was like, God, that sounds familiar. And I sort of did a double take back, and I went, oh my God, that's my track. And I was absolutely blown away. And yeah, I just went crazy. And then I remember getting an email back from him with just boom. And yeah, that's what set things off really. And I've just truly amazed. And it's actually done. It got released on Music to Die For, and it's done really well. They got a Quiver remix, and but since I've just got the bug, and I've been doing, when in my spare time, in the mornings, the evenings, I'm just on Ableton making new tracks. And then John rang me up and asked me if I'd do a remix short notice for this Futuro package, and of course I accepted and got the parts, did it, and yeah, it's been going really well, and I've been getting some other remixes, got more remixes coming, and I've got lots of music all lined up that, hopefully will be coming out soon. So I'm trying to, yeah, I've got Plastic Fantastic, but also trying to sort of spread things out a bit and put them out on different labels. And obviously Bedrock's is going back to the football thing. It's like playing football, in the park and then getting signed to Real Madrid or someone. It's like a schoolboy dream of mine. To have music on Bedrock. So I couldn't be happier, really.
Yeah, it's like the pinnacle for a lot of DJs and producers are, Sasha and
Yeah,
Digweed, Last Night on
absolutely.
Earth and Bedrock.
Yeah,
You know,
I've been listening to them. The Last Night on Earth mixes. I've been listening to those for the past, I don't know how many years. That was my keeping in contact with dance music was, because I absolutely love Sasha as well. I love both of them. I can't really pick between them. But together they're just, out of this world, as good as it gets for me.
100%. It's like good and evil.
Yes,
With Sasha, you get the more, I guess, like landscape, progressive house. With Digweed, you get the darker side. But together, Jesus Christ, I mean, like they're just unbelievable. And still, after all these years, like for the longest time, they kind of went their separate ways for a while, and then they just got back, and it's just great to see them. But it's great to listen to all these new DJs and producers that have looked towards the past, and progressive house does seem to be like, it's not a bad word anymore. Um,
no,
I'd say 15 years ago, like when Beatport were, doing all the genres and did the progressive house, I would, obviously click on it, and that wasn't progressive house for me. It was just like cheesy,
yeah,
down trance music, like pop trance. I was like, this is not progressive house. And I think people bought into that, and that's what they thought progressive house was, or supposed to be. And I was like, no, that's a dirty word. But now, you've got obviously Balance have done brilliant with their mix series. Renaissance obviously still doing their things, but so many good labels coming out. Australia, Mango Alley. It's just, the Australians seem to be really hitting the progressive
it's a
house.
very absolute. I'm glad you say that because they've been, that whole meanwhile recordings matter. Mike Rish. That there's just quite, and also people like Casey Taylor, who, again, he used to come in the shop all the time, and we played together quite a few times around the world. He was, I think he was probably living in London then. But yeah, he had a break for a few years, and the whole Vapor recordings thing, he started that back up because back then there was a Vapor recordings. Um, but that sound is just, like you say, it's a fresh new sound for today's audience, and it's so good to see places like Argentina. I think South America is the other place. I mean, progressive house is just religion to them. It's almost like football again. All the young kids go out to these raves and parties, and all the things Hernan puts on, and I mean it's stadium. It's just
Yeah.
filled. It's their national kind of music. So it's very good to see, and I think it can only get bigger at the moment.
Yeah, they had a guest on. I've forgotten who said it, but they said Hernan is like Argentinian's Messi to music.
Yes, yeah,
But it's great to see again, the Australian prog is a little bit darker, and then you've got Sudbeat and Soundgarden, which is,
A bit more melodic kind
yeah.
of, yeah,
But
exactly.
it's so good because, you can put it all together as long as you get to play these days a 2 hour set. That's another thing that I just don't understand is the 1 hour set. It's before you've
So hard, yeah. It's when I mean already I've been asked to do a couple of sort of radio mixes, and it's just so hard doing it in an hour because I'm very old school. I love the whole, listening all these years to people like Sasha and Digweed and Danny Tenaglia. They're my three kind of biggest inspirations, and it always starts off slower and then you build it up and then you get to your crescendo and then you get to the kind of end of night kind of track. That for me, it's the story. There has to be a story there. I just don't like a linear kind of hour, just mix. It has to progress. I mean, that's what progressive house means, I think, in my eyes. And it can be slower, it can be slightly faster, it can be darker, more tribally, more techy, more melodic. It's, this is why I think it is exciting because they're just melting pot from around the world, like you say, and they're all taking little inspirations from previous years and making it their own. And yeah, it is an exciting time, I think.
well, I know you've heard about it, the balance in Croatia.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I
Oh,
mean that's just incredible. I mean to actually have the audacity to put something like that on shows you how big progressive house is now. And it's
mhm.
true. It's gonna the way I've read the write-ups about it, and they're saying that it's all the different pockets around the world of, like we were just talking about, all getting together under one roof. I mean, yeah, gonna be, and the setting is amazing. I've never been. It's one of the places I want to go. So hopefully I'll make it over there.
Yeah, I mean it's an A to Z of progressive house DJs and producers. Yeah, when I first saw that, and thanks to Will at Progressive, who's doing an amazing job at bringing the history of progressive house. So well played to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's still like a kid to me because I'm in my 50s, and his channel, like I give mad respect to him because it's not just about the music. He wants to tell a story and bring the history of progressive house. And I've messaged Will several times, just going, keep it going, mate, because the sky's the limit for him as well. He's working with Skyline from Glasgow, and we need people like him to
100%, yeah.
get going. And people like Fish Octagon as well. Like, I think he's absolutely brilliant. He's a smart ass as well, which I like. But he knows his shit, and that's what you want. I don't give a crap if he's 20, 35, or 70. If you know your stuff, you know your stuff.
Well,
And
he's been collecting records for a long time, hasn't he? Clearly. So, yeah, you've got to give him respect.
and fair play to him. He's having the time of his life. And it's showing that doesn't matter how old you are, if you have a passion for something that you love, you can do the things like he's doing. So, but yeah, when I first saw that lineup, I was like, this has to be a joke. There's no way that this many of the progressive house community is playing in one, like, just for 3 days. No way. And I told me missus, I was like, fancy a holiday to Croatia next year in August. She's like, no, not really. I'm like, well, let's talk about it.
Well, we really want to go, but we're trying to work out. I think we're going to be in Italy at the time, and we're trying to work out. The only problem is our two dogs, and we don't know how. Yeah, we're trying to get dog sitters for our dogs, which is not going to be easy. But yeah, if we're in Italy, we'll be able to have a quick sort of flight across to Croatia there to make it. So I hope I can make it because, yeah, I mean, it's something not to be missed, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a chance for people to meet as well. That's another thing. It's not just about the music; it's about making
No,
connections as well. You know, whether
totally,
it's
yeah.
friendships for life or business connections as well. So, my last question for you, Enzo, is where do you see dance music in the next 10, 15 years?
The tricky one, I don't know. I'm hoping with all this backlash against, yeah, I mean, I can't stand the whole, you know, negative part of dance music at the moment with regard to having to have all these follow, basically people getting gigs just off the back of how many social media followers they've got, nothing to do with their skill as a DJ. And I just think the whole scene needs to get away from that. And it's really, until the promoters stop booking those kinds of people and start booking the more up and coming people, which is what we're talking about. Will's trying to do with what he's, putting on nights and using more of the up and coming people, giving them a chance. Yeah, it needs to happen sooner rather than later because we've all seen these kind of scare story videos of these people that are on stage DJing, and then something goes wrong and they don't know what to do. They're not DJs, they're just or just too much sort of theatrical stuff behind the decks. I'm just very much, very much get behind the decks, play your music. It's not really about the DJ, it's about the music. The DJ, when we used to go out back in the day, was tucked away up in a corner or somewhere, weren't they? They weren't really ever seen that much. What you were there, everyone was on the dance floor listening to the music, getting into the music. It wasn't about the person in the middle of the dance floor or the stage with everyone around them, with their phones up, just recording them. We need to get away from that, I hope, and get back into the actual music. And a lot of these clubs that are bringing in, banning phones or putting a little sticker on your lens to try and discourage you, I think can only be a good thing. So I'm hoping it's going to go that way, and the youngsters will learn about that and realize it's not cool to have your phone on recording everything. Just look at these videos of, what's that famous video of Liverpool back in the early 90s with Enjoy Anthem playing with the whole place just erupting.
Quadrant Park.
That's it, the Quadrant Park. Is that Liverpool or Manchester?
Oh, that's Liverpool.
Okay, that video, every youngster should watch because that is what it was all about.
Yeah,
and it needs to go back to being more like. Obviously, it's not going to be like that ever because that was a time, but it needs to go back to being more like that.
Yeah, the music comes first. That's what the biggest issues I have is TikTok DJs, influencers, and there's so many good DJs out there that aren't getting the gigs because they don't have the followers, or it's just we're at a different time. But I think it would help clubs because agents are asking for way too much money. That's why a lot of these clubs are closing. I heard Motion's closing in Bristol that I've been to many times is brilliant. And more clubs are shutting down because these big star DJs want these exuberant paychecks. And these promoters can't afford it anymore. And then they're thinking, well, I can't bring on, DJ Sammy because he doesn't have the following. Trust in these DJs. That's what I say. Trust in them. They will get a following. It might not be the first month, but give them 6 months to a year. They'll bring the people. If they're good DJs and the music that they play are very good, they'll bring in people.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough of these kind of regular club nights where you get to know the kind of resident DJ and the warm-up DJ, and a lot of it used to be about listening to a warm-up DJ as well as the main DJ. and that came with kind of regular club nights, but you don't really get that many sort of regular club nights, do you,
No.
anymore? But it's because of a lot of the clubs have closed down.
Yeah, it's the same in America as well. When I was first over here, I go to Orlando all the time, see Sasha and Digweed when they first came over, and I couldn't believe the progressive house scene here was that good. Jimmy Van Em, Chris Fortier,
Yeah,
Dave
yeah.
Canati. So I was shocked, and again, progressive house in America, the golden years were mid 2000s, and then it just went away. And every video I turn on YouTube now, you've got that hard style techno bollocks that's soulless. Like it's just it's
Too
pantomime.
fast, too fast.
Yeah, it's pantomime. You see the DJ not really doing much apart from like doing.
Twirling and dancing and gyrating. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's far too much of that going on. But then again, is that what the people are going out to see? Someone's obviously paying to go and so if the people are paying to go and see that, but yeah, it's more suited to strip clubs and stuff. I think some of those antics. It's you almost need to get them half the time at a kind of a pole so they can do their pole dance as well. Do a little pole dance whilst DJing. Without sounding sexist. But
Well, some of the fellas
yeah,
look
well,
like
there's some fellas that
as
there's
well.
some fellas doing it too. Absolutely, yeah.
It's
Just get just get your head down and just DJ. And of course, we all like to see a bit of motion from the DJ. It's nice, it's good to see Sasha getting into it, raising his hand or what have you. But no, I'm more old school. I like the DJ to be kind of a bit calmer behind the decks.
Yeah, a la Digweed.
Yes,
Just
totally.
concentrate, maybe look up
Just put
once or twice.
yeah, exactly, because it's about the music. You don't want to be taken over and be a spectacle. It's about the music, like we keep saying, and yeah, until that happens, this scene definitely needs to revert back to that, and I hope it does.
I think it will. Well, on that note, mate, thank you so much for spending an hour and a bit chatting with me.
That's all right. It's flown by.
Well, I'm so happy you brought back Plastic Fantastic. I'm so happy Cortona's doing really well. I can't wait. Um, I'm not going to say it on here, but you did allude to something in a message.
There's
You're working on a track that I.
there's lots of stuff happening in the background. Hopefully there's some really exciting stuff happening in the background. So next year, I think, look out, 'cause there's going to be some great stuff coming out, both from the plastic labels and from myself with Cortona. Absolutely, really exciting.
Oh, please look out for that. You can find it all on Spotify and Beatport or all your good record shops online, and hopefully record shops. Are you gonna start doing vinyl?
Well, I think we're going to do. We'll probably try to do what kind of Celador do, Steve Parry's label, and every now and then we'll bring out the kind of best of the best on vinyl and do kind of a 4-track kind of 12-inch of the kind, because we get asked all the time, is it coming out on vinyl? So there's a lot of vinyl buyers out there, and obviously my allegiance is to vinyl, but also it's expensive now, and quite risky printing vinyl. So but I think there's definitely going to be a place for kind of a 4-track EP of the best of the best. So definitely, yeah.
I look forward to that. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Enzo. Um, Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Cheers.